Okay, I'll call Rich County Commission meeting, November 6th meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is a pledge of allegiance. I'll ask our clerk, Mrs. Spirit, to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, other than the first item of business being on the phone, virtual instead of here, is there any other changes to the agenda?
Yeah, it looks like the minutes aren't quite ready to approve, so we can take that off.
Okay,
Your expenditures are right here.
okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to set the agenda with those changes for today.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded that the agenda be set today. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. So.
Hello?
Hello, is this this number for Kip Barnes?
No,
It is not.
it is not.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No worries.
My days. Hold on.
Let me check that one.
Is this 550?
Let me see. It's
could
my
be.
handwriting. It's my chicken scratch. I apologize, everybody. Yeah, it's 550.
Okay, that's what I dialed.
2165. That would be my bad.
Okay, yeah, 550-2163.
2163.
6-3. That 3 looks like a 5.
My apologies.
No, that's good. You're fine.
Hi, this is Kip.
Kip, how are you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Good. You got the Rich County Commission here on speakerphone.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So should I just start?
Yeah.
Number one, I'm so sorry, but I've been in a traffic jam for the better part of 2.5 hours.
Holy
So I
cow.
apologize for not being there.
Well, I'm sorry you're having to deal with that.
All right, well, so anyway, let me just tell you what happened. I was the owner and still am the owner of lots 8 and 9 at the Sweetwater Sub-3 subdivision. I did buy lot 10 and I decided to sell lot 10. So I went down when I sold it. And as you know, I had submitted the right to do a plat amendment on lots 8 and 9. So I went down there. The girl told me at the special service district for the sewer that I had paid $5,000 and I had paid the water and sewer on lot 9. And I asked her if I could, because I'm never planning on building on lot 9, if I could move the sewer to lot 10. I wanted to keep the water. So she said, and at that time, Stringham came in and they decided it's the next lot over, they'll just transfer the sewer over. So I go down to the water company, tell them what I'm doing. They say they're too busy to do anything this year. They'll get me on the list. So when I go back a year later, they fired everybody. I'm not on any list. So I go back to the sewer company, and she had dissolved all of the information on lot 9. She said she moved it to lot 10, but all that she moved was the sewer, and now there's no record of my paying the water on lot 9. So in essence, what's happened is that when I paid Stringham, it was $5,000 for the sewer and water. But the problem I have is it was so long ago that time Stringham was, and this is the Stringham that has passed away. His brother is now in charge, I believe, of the sewer. He remembered, he actually put the doors in my cabin. So when they did this, not only did the water not get to the water company, because they were in charge, Stringham was in charge of the water and sewer, and all as I'm getting is they have nothing to do with water. Why would that be an issue? And so my thought was, I just don't believe in 20 years of paying water and having that on the record, you can just push a button and all of a sudden it's eliminated. Somebody ought to be able, I'm computer illiterate, but I know there are people that are good on computers, and there has to be some sort of a backup system. And if I could find my original date and payment of $5,000, this is a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm. So, are you still paying a water bill on lot 10?
No, because I sold it. And they're showing a sewer connection fee paid. She said she transferred all of the information on 9 to 10, but forgot to mention the $5,000. That water never got transferred. The money of that original $5,000 never got put over to the water company once that separated. It stayed there. And as you know, I've sold properties all over this country. I've never heard of anybody paying for sewer and not paying for water. In most instances, you have to pay for water to even hook up to the sewer. And now she's showing I paid for the sewer on lot 10 20 years ago when I never even owned it. I don't know why they just didn't say it was transferred from lot 9 to 10.
Well, didn't you request that? You said at the beginning that you requested it to be transferred from 9 to 10.
Just the sewer. Because here's the biggest issue with me and it's not the $5,000. Since then, I've talked to the water company, and their new rules are that if you're not going to build a home on it, they're not going to give you the water. And the only way I'll get it is by the grandfather clause. I paid for that water at the request of a board member that owned 2 lots, paid for the water, so he had 2 water hookups. I own 2 lots. You just don't get enough money to maintain another lot if you don't have water to it. It was critical, but this whole plat amendment and everything is going to be based on the ability to get that water over to Lot 9 where it was paid 20-something years ago.
So have you been before the sewer board and the water board, the Bear Lake Water
Well,
Board?
the water board has not, can't say good, bad, indifference, because number one, they never got the money, and they'll have no record of anything being done. Until I get the sewer done, and I don't know, she just told me that it's been transferred, it's done, there's nothing she can do about it. I was hoping this meeting I could get at least somebody that knows something about computers to regenerate the date of the payment on the water and sewer that I paid on Lot 9. And the one thing that I have going for me is there was a gentleman by the name of Scott Ecker that was painting and doing tile work at the Sweetwater timeshares, working for Stan Franson and those guys, and was living at my cabin during this time that was with me when I paid Stringham the $5,000. So I have a witness that was present the day I sat in front of the Pickleville Playhouse, wrote in the check, and gave it to him.
Well,
But this was like 20 years ago.
well, so the Bear Lake Sewer District and the Bear Lake Water District, which is for Sweetwater, they have their own boards and they have their own, and so we don't control anything they do, and we can't solve your problem. It's gonna have to be a sewer district and a water district.
Okay, but see, and this is, I've sold a lot of property. If you're a special service district, the county should be involved. It has to be a county entity. So am I mistaken there?
Well, they have their own board of directors, and they're the ones that conduct the day-to-day and their financial,
Oh, you know what? And I'm okay with that. Nobody's been able to give me one number of one person to talk to.
with this, on
The
the,
Bear Lake Special Service District is not giving me one person to contact. And this has been going on now for 2 years.
well, I would get
If
on,
you could give me one name of one person that I can, because I can't just let this go.
well, if it was me, I would contact the secretary of the Special Service District and get on their board agenda for the next Special Service District meeting and plead your case to the Special Service District.
Okay. That sounds right to me. So do you have it? So how do I find that number? Because I've been down to the Special Service District and they just told me that they can't do nothing about it.
So, I'm not sure who the chairman of the special service district is now. Who would that be? Terry, would you know?
Dwayne?
Is he the chairman of the board?
Well, I would contact him, find out who is the chairman. I don't know who the board is, but I think Dwayne's in charge of the sewer district now, I think.
Okay.
But if that happened 20 years ago before the bankruptcy,
Oh, I don't have Dwayne's
I
number.
got it.
So, Kip, we're gonna give you the name of Dwayne Gifford, and he is the superintendent of the service district. And just tell him that you would like to be on the agenda for the next board meeting that they have. I don't know what their calendar is and when they have those, but I believe they have them fairly often. So,
Thank you, I'd appreciate it. Would you have their number by any chance?
I do. It's 435-363-6911. And his name is Dwayne Gifford.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
Okay,
You know, that's all I needed was a number.
okay.
So I appreciate you guys greatly, and I'm sorry for taking up this time. I just needed to know who to talk to on this.
Okay, talk to him and get on their board, get on their, go into their board meeting and plead your case and see if you can work something out with them.
All right, I appreciate it, and thank you guys.
Thank you. Have a good day. Hope you're getting out of the traffic jam.
Yeah, I'm sitting as a maverick, mellowing out. Thanks, guys.
Okay,
Thank you. That's where you mellow out, at the Maverick. Okay, Tammy.
Good morning. Oh, you guys changed your table.
State your name and
Tammy Linhart, Bear Lake Convention and Visitors Bureau Director. Split those up. That's Annalise's. And then here's your packet of
have the application.
all the applications, yeah. And then this is just gonna be, the minutes that we're looking at first. And it'll state, what the board recommended on each application. Down below in the comments section, they did refer to, the ones that they did not grant the full applications to and why. They went through all of the applications really good, but very thorough. Sorry, Sam.
So, Zora software, what's that?
That is kind of like your Gov OS. The only thing different on Ozora is that it is run by Bob Peterson, Bob Peterson, and 2 other investors that are not from the valley. It is a software that he will be actually doing all of the tracking from here in the valley, and he'll be on top of everything. Hopefully it'll go through my office so that I can track it as well and do any of the follow-ups that need to be done. I did go through everything on the software with him. It is very easy. There's not much work that the county will have to do. Then this page that you two are looking at, it has the totals down here, the total amount of the grants in one column. The other column is the tab board, what they approved, recommendations to the commissioners. And then on the bottom, it shows the rollovers and as of August, the total amount that we do have now. And we still have 4 months to collect. TRT, we are showing 2.4% above from last year, and RT, we are at 4.9% above last year as of August.
So the sheriff's office, is that just for overtime?
Last year, well, the previous years, they have been every time for the summer influx of visitation. They still have 79,000, I do believe, close around there, and it is to be used for the influx. Going through everything, the board felt that because they still have that amount of money and they have not been using it in the right categories, it's just been miscellaneous, that they knocked it down to 50,000.
That's good.
Yeah.
Then the next page just shows your dollar amounts as of each month coming in compared to last year and in comparison to the last 3 years. 4 years.
So is there a different reporting method or something, because of the difference between 23 and 24 in months, June, July, and August? I mean, in 23, they were fairly low, and in 24, some of them as much as 3 and 4 times more than last year. Why is that,
Where are you looking, right here?
Yeah.
Okay. When I asked them, some of these, like right here last year, sorry about that. Last year, they just kind of, oh, my pen won't work. Anyway, they kind of split them. So each month last year was not really the correct one. They just kind of lumped it, depending on when the money came in, and that was from the state. That's why I really questioned the 6,000 last year compared to the year prior was 58,000, and that's what they had said. That's why you see in March 35,000 in 2022 and 74,000 in 2023. So just their numbers just all caught up, and then you'll see this year it's pretty much average where from 2022 to 2024. So it's more in line with that. You could see what they did last year. And that was with the state, not anything else.
Okay.
So is that the same thing in August?
No,
How come it's so much lower? this year?
August, I'm kinda waiting for September to see if that will be more into the August. And it really depends on, like they said, depends on when they, turned in their dollar amount. And that's why they're always 2 months behind. Getting that dollar amount in there is up to them. And when they get the numbers out. So I'm very curious what the rest of the months are gonna be like. And if we keep it just the same as last year, the previous page, that's the amount, where it's got 250,000. That would be the same as if we collected last year in the next 4 or 5 months. 4 months. And where we are already at 2.4% above in short-term rental, and restaurant is 4.9% above that. I'm guessing it's gonna be more than the 250,000. But if anything does drastically change, I do wanna bring it to your attention before you do have your budget hearing. So if we need to change some things also.
Okay, you got the applications in here, so
Mhm.
we can go through them.
Yep.
Are you ready? You guys ready to rank them?
That is what this is.
Okay.
Okay,
Anything else?
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. You guys have a good meeting.
thank you, Tammy, thanks for bringing this over.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay, Brad.
I brought a Padre if you don't mind.
You betcha.
Just state both of you state your names.
I'm Brad Davis, president of the Hodges Canal Company.
I'm Terry Allen, I'm on the board of the Swan Creek Canal Company.
So we want to talk about county canal ordinances, if you don't mind. Development pressure in the Bear Lake Basin continues to pose a threat to canal companies in the basin, as I'm sure you know. This was noted in the Rich County Resource Management Plan that you adopted in 2017. You referenced the 2011 breach that happened in Harbor Village as a result of stormwater runoff. Another breach in the canal occurred in June 2022, this time directly caused by development activity near the canal. Rich County Development Code and the Garden City ordinances do provide some protection for the use of the canals for stormwater runoff. However, I'm not sure that it's doing much good. The developers continue to resist any kind of mitigating measures, especially curb and gutter and culverts diverting water from the canal, and so the canal continues to be a de facto stormwater runoff failsafe. Garden City, and I think you have this in front of you, Garden City does have an ordinance protecting the canal, and although it's not ideal for us, it does provide what we think is a good first step and possibly a blueprint for going forward and doing a better job of protecting the canals for irrigation use. The issue really for us right now is we have no protection outside of Garden City, at least not as far as I could tell. I went through the Rich County Code and I don't really see anything that kind of protects us aside from the stormwater runoff provision in the Development Code. And unfortunately, that's where the risk is highest now. Garden City, within the Garden City limits, is getting to the point where development is already done. There are a couple of developments that are happening in Garden City, but those are all well above the canal and really not too much of a problem except for the stormwater runoff. What I, as the president of Hodges Canal, am really concerned about is the development that's happening in the south end, and what may be starting to happen in the north end outside the city limits. We have developers who are looking at several large projects below the canal down in the meadows below the Sweetwater subdivisions. We've already got one townhome development going in what I think is going to be a real problem area, because right now it's dry because there hasn't been any water in the canal, but as the canal water starts, we're already seeing the water table going up down there, and we're going to have hassles with them as far as groundwater levels. So what I'm hoping is that we can begin to have a dialogue about perhaps creating some type of ordinance in the county that gives us similar protection to what we see in Garden City, and perhaps even make that more comprehensive so that we can pull Garden City along with us and protect those canals for irrigators and livestock owners. Thank you.
You know, and even north of Garden City, from the state parks north, there's talk of possible development along that area, which is really got steep banks in the canal, and that's what creates a lot of our problems, is people digging back into the banks of the canal, and then they just don't realize that creates an issue when we get water in the ditch. So if we could get some sort of protection on for that property going to the north, that would be huge for us as far as getting it piped in, and it'd be way safer for everybody, I think.
Well, it needs to be consistent for the two canals, just for the simple reason that if a person is looking for a loophole, they're gonna try and do it out of Garden City in the county because it's easier.
Right.
But it doesn't eliminate the dangers and the problems.
No.
So,
No, it doesn't.
you know, regardless of it's in Garden City or it's in the county, it needs to be consistent throughout both canals. And we need to develop a protective ordinance for the canal. I mean, it's totally amazing to me that, you know, they build in these subdivisions and you know, when that water's in the canal and it's not irrigation season, it's not the canal company's responsibility, yet they're the ones that get turned around and wanna be sued because it run over their banks, or because it didn't carry the water, or they got full of snow, or something else. But they're irrigation canals, they're not floodwater canals, and so, you know, and the canal companies are there and exist for a purpose, and we need to protect those right-of-ways so that it protects both the development but also the canal company. So I think what we need to do is probably get our attorney working on this and get an ordinance put together and review it, and both, you know, we'd probably like to have you guys review it as well, and see if we can bring some consistency throughout both canals, both either in Garden City or out in the canal, or out in the unincorporated county. That's my feelings anyway.
I agree.
So Brad, you mentioned that this was a good start. What would you change about Garden City's protective ordinance?
The biggest problem, I think, for us is that the protective ordinance in Garden City really only covers the easement. So we have a 33 easement from center line of the canal. And in a lot of cases, in a lot of places in the canal, that's probably enough. I think the 2022 breach, however, showed the limitations of that. And that was the developer's claim, is, oh, we were outside of your easement. However, if you look at it on this from the side, basically what they did is they went just outside the easement and straight down. And so basically what they did was they destabilized the downhill wall of the entire canal, even though they were outside the easement. And developers look at that easement and they have the idea that as long as we're outside that easement, we can do anything we want. And it's their property. We just have an easement to push water through. And so it's really difficult for us to say, hey, you shouldn't do that. We can say it, but they don't listen to us. And then when a breach like this happens, their claim is that we caused it because we run water through the canal. So what we wanted to see from the city was some type of determination of proximity to the canal. In other words, depending on the slope of the canal, there should be a footage determination of how close to the canal they could dig or develop before they had to get either consultation from the canal companies and in our opinion, it should be both, a geotechnical review that would give us some indication that their development wouldn't cause problems with the canal. So it's unfortunately a little bit more fungible than just saying X number of feet, because south of Highway 89 for a couple of miles, actually, the canal bank is almost zero. Somebody could probably dig literally next to the canal, and as long as they didn't breach the bank, they'd be fine. But a little farther north where the slope is 30 and 40 degrees, yeah, you can be outside the canal, but that's a standing wall of dirt, and the canal pressure, it blew that bank right out because they had undermined the foundation of the canal wall.
Okay. So they got approval though, and since you gave approval, they're saying, or they did not?
No, so the problem was this breach happened prior to this ordinance
Okay.
even being in
Got
place.
it.
And so the ordinance at that time didn't exist, and Garden City's position at that point was, well, the canal company takes care of the canal company and the city takes care of the developers. There was no communication at all, and at that point, the developer didn't even need a permit to do what they were doing. And so they just went ahead and did it. The city didn't have any oversight. Nobody was paying attention until at 9 o'clock at night we get a call and there's water coming down the hill headed for the hardware store. That's when everybody woke up to the risk.
Yeah. I get that, and I think that the canal company, if you are, the authorizing entity, you have to sign off on it. You do take some liability at that point. So I understand what you're saying, that you may have to dive deeper on some applications, because if you say you're good to build and they do and it comes back.
Correct.
Now that you've inserted yourself into the process,
And our de facto position, whenever we can now, is that we're requiring developers to pipe those sections of the canal when the development runs any risk of exposing the public to this kind of hazard, because we dodged a really big bullet this last time, and if we have this happen again and don't dodge that bullet, the canal company's going to be the least of it. We'll just go bankrupt and they'll fight about it, and it's going to be the homeowners and the city and the business owners and the livestock folks and the irrigators who are really going to lose, because there won't be any water in the canal, because there won't be a canal company, and there'll be millions of dollars of damages that somebody's going to have to figure out how to cover.
Yeah. Has there been pushback on having people pipe it? Have you had anybody do that yet?
We have had one developer do it, and fortunately he was really not very difficult to deal with. We haven't had a big test yet, but we do have a precedent now. So the question's going to become, when we do have a big development and we do require that, how much of a fight are we going to have? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we could, like say, there's never any, to this point, there's no conversation with the canal companies. They just do it, and then the consequences are what they are. But if we had at least had that conversation where they could require a geotech to work with their engineers on their project and their contractors, at least that liability shifts a little bit from the canals to those people that's giving that okay to do it.
Yeah, we can use if we can require them to do that due diligence, then the canal companies at least can say, look, we're giving you this authorization based on the expert opinion of an engineer who said, yes, this should be safe. So we, you know, it does kind of shift that liability away from the canal company.
Well, it gives you some ground to, I mean, that's the thing, we've got, part of the canal's already in a pipe. That was what had to be done to bring some stability where it was washed out. There was some danger in another area where many homes were right underneath the canal, and that has been piped. And eventually, you know, between the developers and the canal company, the entire canals are gonna have to be piped, but that also brings to light that the runoff.
That's the
wa-
stormwater
yeah,
problem.
the
So
runoff
we
water.
solve one problem, we've created another,
Yeah.
honestly. So as we pipe the canal, one of the things we're gonna have to think of, because again, even though we may not be responsible, it doesn't take, you know, a really intelligent attorney to look at that and go, oh, you piped the canal and now this is happening, it's your liability. So we do have, you know, even though we don't have a legal responsibility, I think we have a moral responsibility to do what we can to protect the community against the consequences of what we need to do to protect ourselves from canal
Yeah.
breaches.
And it's good that you have the wording of the geotech and have them involved, because one place your canal's subbing out, and has done for 100,000 years, and then other places it doesn't. So it
Well, and that,
depends.
yeah, that's the problem is, you know, we have a lot of flood irrigators, and in the past, when this wasn't development, flood irrigation and subbing was actually a benefit because it was free water for,
Absolutely.
you know, free water and free vegetation. But now that homeowners and developers are moving in, they see that groundwater as a nuisance and they're pointing the finger. Whose water is this? Well, I guess technically it's our water, but the bottom line is
It's been
the
there
water
for
was there before
1,000
they
years.
were, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're happy to
Well-
do whatever we can do to help you with this and.
Yeah, we need to we'll get our attorney and have him draft some stuff, wording, and get it to you guys to
All right.
review
We
and.
really appreciate your assistance. I think this is a positive step for the county and for the city. And like I said, I think even though I don't think the developers necessarily see it this way, it protects them as well as it does us.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming over. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan.
That's it.
Sure. All right. Dan Hoffman with Hoffman Insurance Services, Evanston. I have Will Barker with me today, partner. Been working together for a couple of years now. He's been in business for over 3.5 years, and as you know, my dad passed away a number of years ago, and so he's the next thing in line with Hoffman Insurance Services. So thought I'd bring him down and have him help out today and do some introductions. So just want to start off by saying thank you for the opportunity to work with Rich County and employees over the years. I have 4 plans to discuss with you today. I'll start with the medical, if you want to pass that one out.
Yeah.
I'll take a pen. Moving some things around in my office and I found some pocket knives, but I just didn't know if I could trust Bill with one of those yet. So I thought we'd save that for a later time, because, you know, that's one of those.
All right, I've learned my lesson.
All right, well, I don't wanna be, you know,
If you give it to me, it'll be at the airport.
be the cause or at the Jazz game, right?
Yeah.
So, start off with Select Health has no changes to their benefits, but as you can see from the top of the page there, the Select Health is an 18.65% increase for the calendar year 25. The Emeritus Dental is a 3.8% increase. That does include a 24-month rate guarantee. And I printed those but left them in my printer, so I corrected it down at the bottom of the page. I wrote in the correction there. The VSP is renewing at a 0% increase for a 24-month period, and we're currently in a Hartford Life guarantee, so that's a 0% increase. So vision and life are 0, dental's a small increase at 3.8, and select health is 18.65. So on the right-hand side, as this is the same page I always give, old rates on the left, new rates on the right. The numbers in yellow are the total premium of what the employee will pay monthly. The number right below that, referencing the single at $14.82, that's the increase in premium to the employee at the 18.65% with no change in benefits. Just drop down to family real quick. You can see that the increase is $292, and the employee's portion of that, assuming the 90-10 continuation of premium, is $45. If you go to the bottom of the page on the right-hand side, I've got it broke out by semi-monthly. So you can see that to the employee, that means $7.51 of an increase, and a family would go up $23.34, and that's per check. So that's these numbers right down here in this corner. So that's what I'm referencing there.
Hey, do you have this by a 24-month or a 26?
I have it by 24.
Thank you.
Because as you know, the county switched from monthly payroll to 26 payrolls, but this is divided by 24, so I think there's 2 holidays, as we call them, that you don't take deductions out of people's insurance. So this is divided by 24.
Thank you.
Yep, perfect.
And the plan doesn't change.
The plan doesn't change at all. This is the sheet from Select Health showing the benefit, and there's no change on it. So usually I start out with, well, the copay on this, or the deductible on that, or the something, but there's no changes for the 2025 plan year.
Just an 18.65% increase.
Exactly. We've seen higher increases, we've seen lower. If you wanna hand out that second sheet, Will.
Yeah.
This is the renewal on the dental. And then this next page after that one.
Is this what you want me to hand out?
Yep.
Okay.
Take one of these. And then this one here gives you the increase by medical and by dental. And it just gives you the averages at the bottom. So the medical insurance, the number in yellow there, 8,524 is the monthly increase. The 102 is the annual increase. If you go down and take that by the 24 employees, you're looking at an average increase of 319 for the medical and 35 for the employee. Jump over to the dental. Of course, much smaller premiums, $5.56 for an employee. If you turn that page over to the bigger side, that is both of those numbers added together, the dental and vision. If you go down to the bottom, you have a yellow number of what the monthly increase is, what the annual increase is, and then what the average is divided by 24 employees. So 324 for the employer and $36 a month average for the employees.
So, and that 324, that's just per month, or is that per pay period?
That's per month.
Okay.
So you divide that in half if you're just looking at it semi-annually,
Okay.
or semi-monthly. It's quite a big increase. So I have options. First one, we're gonna pass those out. This page here basically shows that Select Health has 8 options available with lower benefits for lower monthly premiums. So I've just written up here what your current monthly premium that you're paying is at the top, and then I've shown you the 8 options and then highlighted what the benefits are. I did shop the plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield Regents. Those rates came back 28% higher, so 10% higher than your renewal. I shopped it with PEHP. How do you feel about PEHP?
We've had people ask about it, so I'd be interested to know what
I
you
have
think.
28 quotes from them, and they're all higher than what you're currently at. But it's certainly something that you've been with Select Health for over 25 years. With change comes cost, comes networks, comes doctors, comes.
So, Dan,
Mhm.
our current plan that we have, if you have that, if you shop PHP, our current plan that would be similar to PHP, where does that fall with our Select Health?
They're never apples to apples.
I know that.
You're talking rate.
Yep.
Rate is about 3 to 5% above where you're at with Select Health. So you could save approximately 14% by switching, but then you've got, as I said, different plan designs, different networks of doctors, hospitals. It's a big change for the employees. But 18% is 18% as well.
So this $700,000 that would be our total price, does that include, is that our 90% or does that include the 10%? Is that the full 100%?
That's the 100% number.
Okay.
The numbers below is the difference, and then in the box right here, that 93,000 is the 90% that the county pays for a year. And then you take that yearly number and divide it by the 24, or you take the monthly difference of 7788 and divide it by 24 employees, and it's an average of 324. And then take the 10%, that's the, because you pay 90.
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
It is.
And we've seen a lot of other carriers experiencing similar, whether it's last year or this year, or they kind of stagger the increases, but it's been kind of common with just the trend in inflation.
So, I don't understand the law well enough. Some of our employees, if they were on the marketplace, they would probably qualify for subsidies, right?
But
They would if they didn't have coverage offered through an employer.
Okay,
But coverage offered through an employer automatically disqualifies them from the premium tax credit.
but if we stopped offering health insurance, then they would qualify.
Technically, yes, yeah. Unless their spouse had an offer of coverage. So if either one of them has an offer of coverage through an employer,
Yeah.
But nobody would be working for you if you didn't have that.
Well, I just know my insurance through the marketplace, before I was commissioner, was cheaper and better. And I know things have changed in 4 years, and I'm just throwing it out there, I get it, but, $700,000 is a ginormous amount of money. And I know there are some accounts you can, like ICHRAs, where you can contribute towards what an employee would pay, but I just gotta wrap my head around that number.
yeah.
just as an example, I insure the school district in Evanston, Unit County School District number 1. The CFO walked into my office a week and a half ago with a notice from the IRS, $348,000 penalty because 2 employees applied for marketplace coverage and they were eligible for benefits, according to the IRS. We have discovered since that it was summertime and they were paraprofessionals and they had gone off of the school's insurance, so they weren't eligible, so we think they clicked a box incorrectly on the marketplace application they filled out. But how does the IRS come up with a $348,000 penalty for 2 employees?
Yeah.
For 4 months of coverage? One was 3 months and the other was 1 month that they got a health insurance credit from the marketplace. And the employer received a $348,000 bill in the mail with a letter that said, check the box if you agree with this and then close a check, or if you disagree, check the second box and send us an explanation why. Well, obviously we checked the box and said, we don't agree, and these 2 individuals are not benefit eligible in the months they applied for a credit. We're waiting to see what happens, but $348,000 for 2 employees. So that's where the Affordable Care Act is
Yeah,
good
there's
in
that,
ways and bad in ways.
there's that weird gap between, you know, the upper class and the lower class, that's like, those middle class are the ones kinda getting hammered.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One other thing I don't wanna forget to talk about is the, I had a, I'm gonna pass those out. I had a situation arise on another group that I had a dependent pass away in a car accident and found out that the definition didn't meet, the supplemental life dependent definition didn't meet what the group definition was. So that caused me to do a little due diligence and go through my groups, and so just at the top of that letter right there, in red, what I did on your behalf was I contacted the Hartford and I said, we want these 2 definitions to match, because I don't want this to ever happen again. The underwriter took it under advisement and emailed me back and said, we'll add that to the group as of 9/1. So, didn't know that that existed. So so the county provides a basic life insurance policy, and their dependents are covered till age 26, as long as they're unmarried, and the situation was previously on your supplemental life was if the employees bought supplemental life, that definition was different, they were only covered till 19. So I now have that changed, so the definition is the same, so I just wanted to notify you of that I got that done for you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, the tough part with this, as always, is Select Health, your current carrier, requires 30 days notification if you're leaving them. Your renewal is January 1, so that's December 1. So, if we're gonna switch carriers, we have to notify Select Health prior to December 1st. If we're staying with Select Health and taking one of these options, or taking the 18.65% increase, then we can wait until the commission meeting. It auto renews, I think it says at the top of that page, on December 10th. So those are our deadlines that you as commissioners need to be aware of. And then I need to be directed from there, what direction you would like me to go, or us to go.
Yeah, well, we are working on the budget this month, so I think December 1st isn't an unreasonable timeframe for us to get back to you before then.
Okay.
And this is very comprehensive, thank you. I like how you break things down like that.
Thank you. Do you guys want a copy of the current benefits, just so you know what the current benefits are? Give you one of those each, pass those out. And this is just the renewal letter on the VSP. I think Emily's already seen that, but this is just a copy of that letter for everybody on the VSP.
Yeah.
With that, if there's any other questions that we could answer, happy to do so.
I'm sure we'll probably be calling you up for the next few weeks,
Okay.
unless you guys have anything.
No,
It's a good benefits package. I mean, to cover 90/10 and good plans. it's a good package.
Will and I both have groups in southwest Wyoming and parts of Utah. And we're seeing increases anywhere from, well, we saw 28, a 23, we've seen an 18, we've seen a 12, we've seen a 14. It's just not a good year with inflation, everything, you know, medical costs going up, trend. So it's not good news, but it is what it is. So we'll be looking forward to hearing from you,
Okay,
and we'll go from there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
thanks, Dan.
Absolutely.
Great to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, Ben.
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
John, good to see you, man.
See you.
Hi, Bill.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Hey, Chai.
State your names and
Okay. Ben Willoughby, Rich County Attorney.
Mitch Polson, Planning Administrator for Rich County.
So, I had three things I wanted to discuss, and maybe we can start with the short-term rental ordinance discussion. Is that okay? I've asked Mitch to sit with me here. Oh, did you make copies of that?
Yeah.
Oh, I did too. Good man. All right. So we've had a short-term rental ordinance in the county, I believe, since 2017. And there was a recent change in state statute that moves to make it more difficult to enforce these. For some reason, the state of Utah passed a statute that says that merely post-offering a short-term rental can't be criminalized, which makes it a little more difficult for us. We have to actually maybe book them or
Catch them in the act.
catch
of
them,
rent.
like, yeah, run into a barbecue and ask the people what they're doing there.
Let me ask on that. These short-term rentals are promoted based on reviews, right? With the number of reviews kind of pushes them to the top of the heap. Could we enforce based on reviews? Because that indicates that somebody has spent the night there.
Well, I guess if you could locate the reviewer.
Make sure it's not a fake one, I guess.
Yeah. So,
It's not a bad thought, though.
yeah. So we for a couple of reasons, wanted to just tweak this ordinance, and maybe just report back on how it's been going. We understand that we're paying quite a bit for a monitoring service. And do you know how much we're paying approximately for that?
I'm thinking 35, 40,000, is that right?
Yeah, that's about
You're paying a lot for a company that crawls through the web looking for short-term rentals to pop up. When one pops up, we send them written notice of warning, and you get a certain percentage of compliance. It gets a little more difficult in light of that new statute that you then have to maybe actually like book one or go pass by and see if they actually are renting it out to a group. So that the landscape has gotten a little more difficult. In talking to Mitch, we have the vast majority of short-term rentals are taking place in Garden City. They handle their own. Of that, the ones that are in the county, remind me approximate figure of how many we're doing.
About 75.
There's about 75 taking place in unincorporated or outside of Garden City. Are those 75 outside of towns?
Yes.
Okay, so we're talking about 75. And of those 75, how many of them are outside HOAs?
Not that many. The vast majority of
less
our
than 10,
applicants
right?
are in the Sweetwater subdivision.
I think we mentioned it was about less than 10 that are outside of HOAs.
Could be.
Just
And that number
yeah.
is always evolving. That's what makes it challenging.
Yeah. So I just wanted to give a report back. That might be a business that, you know, $40,000 a year to keep tabs on 10 units that are outside HOAs. If you instead left the statute in place and had HOAs, you know, monitor and also just respond to complaints. If a neighbor calls and says, hey, you know, this house is, you know, being a bad neighbor, then we have enforcement. It's just an idea.
So squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of.
Yeah, you don't repeal the statute, you leave it in place, but we have our monitoring arm be complaint-based rather than proactively looking for them, which I think is costing $40,000 a year. Seems like a lot. That's just an idea to pitch out. But then we do have some proposals for this statute, and kind of just walk you through we'll go through all of the proposals. So if you'll turn with me to page 4, section 6, fees. Currently, we're charging $250 for an application fee. Thereafter, there's a renewal fee of $150. I think this was run through planning and zoning.
Correct.
And the idea is that the $250 and $150 is just falling so short of what your monitoring costs are. I think $1,000 and $600 are aimed at recouping those monitoring costs.
Yep.
And it could be that by raising these fees fourfold, you will actually decrease compliance from the people who are currently complying, or incentivize people to not comply more. But if we do want to offset the fees, or offset the costs of our monitoring service, planning and zoning estimates that would be $1,000 per application per year and $600 per renewal. And for context, what was Garden City charging?
About the same.
Just about the same as this?
Mhm.
Okay. So it'd bring us in line with Garden City.
And they have a single fee for all property sizes?
Correct, all property sizes. They give a discount to applicants who have a management company who applies, because the managers typically understand the system better, and so there's less, you know, back and forth. Please submit this is deficient, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's proposal change 1. Then if you turn with me to page 5, section 8. Let's see. We'll just change that again to 150 to 600 renewal. And the proposal is to require renewals to come in between January 1st and March 31st, at which point it would be treated as a brand new application. And I guess there's been some difficulty in that these renewals just trickle in through the year.
Right.
Really, as people get, I think as they're getting the notices, they're probably struggling to come back and renew. But by having them do it in the first, January, February, March, first 3 months of the year, it incentivizes voluntary compliance. And then, if we go to page 7, section 15, notice of violation. Just my own observation after 7 years of doing this, one difficulty we have is where to send the notices. You can't send it to the place, we haven't been able to send it to the place being rented because our ordinance was written that it had to be personally provided and go to the address of the owner, which is always difficult to know where that's at. This just allows the notice of violation to be sent to the address for which tax notices are on file with the county. If they didn't respond to that notice and we got to the point where we needed to do a summons, then we still have to go through the summons process that we do for all tickets and criminal provisions. But that just seemed like it was kind of a needless difficulty that we were imposing on ourselves by requiring us to track down the address rather than just use the one they have on file for tax notices with us. And then if we turn the page to page 8, section 16, penalties. Previously, we were relying on two things. One is that noncompliance could result in the commission refusing to grant or revoking the short-term rental permit, which would be a big stick. And then the other was, it was treated as a Class C misdemeanor through my office as a criminal action. And I guess that Garden City, do you want to talk about what Garden City's doing with some success?
Yeah, so Garden City uses more of a financial penalty to incentivize folks to get their applications in on time and done correctly, rather than going through the misdemeanor approach. So for each day beyond the renewal period that they are out of compliance, they are fined a certain amount of money. And that's kind of what we've indicated here, is that the fee would be a $300 $300 a day fine, and then subsequent calendar year violations would be $500 a day. I think Garden City's fines are $750 a day, so a little bit stiffer, but I still think a $300 a day fine would be enough to get people's attention. And this is something that we could do by, if we've got this renewal period up till March 31st, if they're not renewed at that time, I can send out a return, a letter saying you got a notice of violation, please come into compliance, you're subject to fines and penalties. I can send it via return, automatic return, and that way I've got a date that I know when they receive it, because they've had to sign for it, and then I can start counting the penalties from that point, and then they don't get a permit until they pay for those fees, in addition to the renewal fees on top of that. And from my discussions with Garden City, it sounds like they don't really have very many people that violate that. It's a big enough incentive that people get their stuff done and get it on time.
And it must work for them, because if they were doing criminal actions, they would be coming through my office, and we don't see any of them. Lastly, J is new language that has to be added there to comply with that new state statute that literally says that a county can use an ordinance that might be used to punish just advertising. So this J brings us into compliance with that state statute. And that's it. Any thoughts or concerns, things to discuss?
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
Sure.
With the withdrawal from a short-term rental, that's a big issue for us too, because with sanitation, they pay extra for sanitation, and then if they decide not to rent the next year, we don't know, and so then we send out sanitation, and then they call and get mad at us, so we have to call Garden City or these guys and say, have they renewed? Is there a way we can put in there something a form that they have to fill out to withdraw from their short-term rental, so that they know and we know that they're out, and we're not having to second guess through 3 different people that find out?
Yes, we could put something in the ordinance that just directs them to notify the county when they're getting out of this business, something affirmative.
Yeah, so they've signed it, and we get a copy of it, and we can take it off their sanitation, and
That's a good idea, Eugene.
that'll just save us getting a lot of angry phone calls.
Right. And then we have it on file that they have said
Yeah, that
we're
you
not
signed it,
doing.
you're not doing it, and then if they violate it, you signed this that you've withdrawn, and,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, we can add something like that.
thank you.
I mean, just going back to that web crawling service, obviously it's not my money or my budget or anything, but for 40,000, you could get 2 civil part-time deputies in my office. One of them could spend an hour a week trying to book a short-term rental in Woodruff, or I think you get more bang for your buck. And anyway.
Okay. Any other questions?
It's a hard one to solve.
Great. Does the commission good with what the P and Z came up with the rate increases?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think we'll have less compliance, but, I probably would have liked to see more of a tiered structure, cause somebody who has, but we don't have any townhomes like in the unincorporated.
Yeah.
Someone has an 8-person sleeper's quite a bit different than, you know, a 60-person sleeper, but, I'm fine with the changes.
I make a motion that we adopt the changes to
Can I'm sorry, Bill,
we gotta have it,
we have to have a public, I didn't know, this is just a discussion, I have to notice it up as a public hearing.
I thought we were, okay.
That's what he's doing, making a motion that we have a public hearing.
Oh, is that what you're doing? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
okay.
Apparently.
Even if the P and Z had the public hearing.
We will set the
What's
public
that?
hearing for December.
P and Z did not have a public hearing. Ben asked me to just bring it to you guys for
Yeah.
your.
So if P and Z does have a public hearing, that covers the public hearing requirement, right?
I don't think so. I think that if we're
If we
tweaking
do-
an ordinance,
Okay.
that we have to have a public hearing here. I don't think they're required to have a public hearing down there.
Or do they have the authority to have public hearing over ordinances?
No, but,
Okay.
but when they discussed it, they didn't have to do that in a public hearing. They
Okay.
could do that in a meeting.
Yeah, I still don't know,
Um,
years later.
what do you guys think about the paying for the web crawling service?
That's the decision we'll make, not today.
Okay.
There's some other options out there, we'll have some discussion about it.
All right.
I mean, it doesn't have got anything to do with the ordinance, so.
There's more going on with that service,
Okay.
like other stuff.
So I will notice this up for December, with all of the changes that we have here. And you guys okay adding something to address Lou Jean's issue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did anybody second that?
Do we have the public hearing?
I make a motion that we have a public hearing on December 11th.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Moving second, we have the public hearing on this discussion on short-term rental. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by the same sign? Motion carries unanimously.
I noticed I made one extra note here, so can we establish, criteria, like require specific evidence and documentation before conducting inspections? Cause we put that in there, right? That we can inspect them, is that still in there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't like the idea of being able to just, as a property owner, people can just show up at any moment. You know, there should be some sort of trigger that requires an inspection.
Let's see what the current language says. I don't believe that in 7 years we've ever had an inspection.
Yeah,
Um,
at least not on purpose.
Is it section 13? Okay. Yeah, it says to allow at reasonable times with reasonable notice during periods when the unit is not being rented.
So, I guess that means even after they've been granted their license, there can be follow-up inspections.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Okay, you okay with that language?
Yeah,
All right. So I'll be back in December on that one.
December. It's December.
Next one, while I have Mitch sitting up here, I wanted to just have a brief, this will be back on December's, but just a quick discussion of Senate Bill 174. Okay, so this one, the state legislature passed a one-size-fits-all statute that basically sets what the exact procedure is to be when someone is trying to get permission in a county or city to subdivide to build homes, duplexes, or townhomes. And so I guess they're trying to address the affordable housing issue in Utah. So Senate Bill 174 does two things. Number one, it specifies that
174 of 2024?
23.
Okay,
23, yeah.
got it.
23. Does two things. Number one, it defines what are called internal accessory dwelling units. And this is if you have a primary residence and then someone wants to retrofit it to create a rental property inside their home, including inside their garage. It basically states that that is allowable. Counties cannot interfere with it, except for in a few ways. One, we can deny them a second meter. We can govern if it changes the exterior of the home, and we can regulate and make sure they have enough parking spaces on site to allow that. Otherwise, counties are no longer allowed to prohibit people from creating rental properties inside their home. And here we're talking about long-term rentals, so over 30 days. Short-term rentals are not affected by this.
Does this count if it's like a detached garage and they're renting out the upstairs?
Good question. It has to share one wall with the
Okay,
home.
so shares one wall.
So it has to be an attached garage. That's a small change. The big change comes later in 17-27A-604.1. And this is the same for counties and cities. It requires a certain very streamlined mechanism when someone wants to approach the county about subdividing to build residential duplexes or townhomes. Where it used to go through planning and zoning and then come here through the normal plat process, instead what now happens is that the county or city has to designate an administrative officer who will shepherd this through. Options for the administrative officer: it can be anybody you want, but it cannot be the commission, and it cannot be any member of the commission. I asked the Utah Association of Counties hired a lawyer to help all counties make this transition, and so he's kind of the expert on this for the state of Utah. I asked him what most counties are doing our size, and he says they're having their zoning and planning administrator be designated as that person, and that would be Mitch. When the developer comes, and this does not affect zoning at all, you still have to be zoned correctly for it, but if you're zoned residential and you want to, say, put in a couple of duplexes or some townhomes or some single-family homes, you can contact the administrative officer, and within 15 business days, you have a sit-down meeting with that person where you are presented up front with all the applicable land use regulations, a complete list of the standards required for the project, the preliminary final application checklists. You get any initial feedback on your plan, which could include, Mitch will say, your roads have to be this wide, you have to get approval from the fire marshal, you have to handle your sewage and your runoff water with these specifications. But then after that 15-day plan, you leave there with a copy of all the regulations you need to follow. You then come back, and it is handled administratively. There is no public hearing required, and if we do hold a public hearing, which is optional, it can only be one public hearing, and it basically is handled administratively rather than before planning commissions and county commissions. It has to be put in place by the end of this year, and Mitch and I have a meeting this afternoon with that UAC attorney who's going to walk us through the specifics, but I'll have this back in December for a proposed, it really, the only discretion that it gives to county commissions on how to enact this are two things. Number one is who you want to have be that administrative officer. And two, whether you want to have it, you have the option to require a public hearing, but you also are not required to have a public hearing. You have the option to forego that. And
Does
that's
that public hearing have to be in front of the planning commission, the county commission, or can that administrative land use authority have one, kind of like a hearing?
Yeah, I guess that's the question we better ask this afternoon. But that's really the only decision to make today is who we would want to be that administrative officer and how you feel about public hearings or if you don't want one.
So it says that you can't have more than one public hearing.
Yeah. And it sets tight turnaround deadlines. You know, after you have 15 days to have that meeting with the administrative officer, and then you have, you know, just a few weeks after, once the final application is submitted, you have a very tight period of time for the administrative officer to review it. If we don't review it in time, it's considered waived and approved. It's a
So is this, I think I remember this, this was a way for, developers introduced this to not be slow walked by communities,
it moves it very fast through,
cause that's very fast.
very fast. Yeah,
And there's nothing we can do about it, cause it's a state code now.
it's a one-size-fits-all solution imposed on all counties and towns for sure. It doesn't affect conditional use permits. I mean, if you need a variance or something, or if you're building in one of our, the beach protection zone, which everything requires a CUP, that is not affected. So, this will, I'll have to have it back in December. I'll shoot you out well in advance, a proposal, and, but that's coming.
I'd be fine having Mitch handle this initially. I would hate to have, cause it could be the planning commission, but I'd hate to have, right, it could be a commission, it could be more than one person. It just has to be a single entity or person.
Yeah, a single entity or person. I think it could be the planning commission, but they have to be fast.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
They have
is
to
that's
act
probably not
fast.
gonna happen.
So if you have quorum issues or, I mean, that
Well,
makes sense.
it really can't be the planning commission because Sim sits on the planning and zoning and he can't be part of that because of the fact that he's a commissioner.
Yeah, it literally says that the three of you are ineligible, so you'd have to be the planning commission minus Sim.
Yeah, I'd be fine with having Mitch do it. What about you guys?
Administrative land use authority means an individual board or commission appointed or employed by a municipality, including municipal staff or municipal planning commission. Administrative land use authority does not include a municipal legislative body or member of a municipal legislative body.
And so here's what that attorney who's handling this for UAC wrote. Most rural counties are choosing the planning director or a person selected from the planning commission.
In my mind, I really think we probably the authority ought to maybe consist of at least 3 different members. That's just my thought. Versus having just one person having to make that decision.
Could it be Mitch and like a deputy from the recorder and the assessor's office?
Yes, it can be.
Or it could be Mitch and 2 of the other.
Planning people,
Planning and zoning.
the most consistent ones? Or I guess any two.
You could have it be a body of 3, maybe with a quorum of 2. They just have to act fast. I mean, if we miss a deadline, the thing is considered approved.
And can that land use committee also include the county engineer that would be reviewing the plat?
Yeah, it can be anybody except our
Except
commission.
they're one of the commissioners, so yeah.
I think Bill's, input is really good, probably needs to be more than one person, but including Mitch. And Mitch, who would you suggest?
Oh, so if you're gonna make it a committee, I would like it to be me, the engineer, and one of the board members on the planning commission, either,
Brian,
what's that?
Brian.
Yeah, like Ryan or, Tracy, Horsley, you know, one of those ones that's very invested is there on a regular.
What if we
basis.
just make it the chairman, like Bill said, of the planning?
Sure.
Yeah, so whoever that is,
It's just on that
Yeah.
committee all the
Yeah.
time.
What we could do is just write an ordinance that says a committee of 3, as from time to time appointed by the commission.
okay.
And then we can pick separately who the 3 wanna be, so we don't have to decide if it's the engineer or,
And we don't have to put specific language in.
it can
And
just
so-
be a committee of 3 as appointed from time to time by
Yeah,
the commission.
The authority can be made up of 3 different members appointed by the commission.
So that committee then, you know, normally when we have a final plat, the county commission signs off on that final plat in addition to a number of other signatories. So would you think that the county commission signatory would be removed and replaced by the land use authority?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So,
Exactly.
alright, well, that's good feedback.
So we don't assign plots anymore?
Well, only if it goes through this process. They have to request to go through this process.
Oh,
yeah. So,
If you can't, and there's kind of some criteria there. I mean, they can't immediately just go to this process. If planning and zoning is not able to get them, I mean, if they're backed up and they have to wait on this process, they can request to go through this process. But normal things will go through planning and zoning.
So kind of a fast track process,
It is.
but they have to recommend it.
It is.
yeah, so if you wanted, anything, so let me just give you, that's a stab at it as written by, me and that UAC attorney, and attached to it is the relevant portions of the bill. And then, we'll make this a committee of, we could say up to 3 as appointed by, the county commission. Okay, any other questions thoughts about that?
Okay, get us a draft. Let's see what we're looking at.
All right,
And we need to have a public hearing on it as well.
yes, and I'll schedule that up.
Okay, I would make a motion that we hold a public hearing on the Ridge County ordinance regulating single-family, two-family, and townhome subdivisions.
Okay, second that.
okay, moving safe that we have a
Public hearing.
public hearing on this. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay. Discussion on building permit
Building permits.
process.
And could we ask our building inspector Tyler to come up and join us?
At this point, I'll excuse myself.
Tyler, you can have my spot. Let's do this if you want. Alright.
Camille, do you need to come up too, or no? Okay.
Stop by my house, or my son's house today, son-in-law's house, and get it inspected.
And rattle him a little bit?
Yeah.
I will.
Okay, so last time I was here, the commission asked me to look into, the building permit process. The specific concern was people get a building permit, and then they just sit on them for years. I think when I pulled our current documents, it allows you to sit on it for 5 years, before you begin to act on it, or it expires.
Yep.
And so, as part of my looking into this, I started talking to Tyler about what we're doing and what's working and what's not working. And we will need, if we want to tailor back how long a building permit lasts for before we have to renew it or before it expires, we need an ordinance. And I figured while we're drafting an ordinance, we could just hear from Tyler today about what's working, what's not, and then just get out what you want that ordinance to look like. And so, do you want to just
Yeah.
talk about what?
Camille, how many permits do we have open right now that are over 3 years old, roughly? A lot. Yep. So this is a pretty good sized problem. What's happening is there's a couple things. There's no teeth behind it to really get someone to speed the process up, and then obviously that just from the spread of the county, there's a lot of houses that are sitting for long periods of time and not being paid attention to, and so creating some sort of way to stay on top of this a little bit better, I think is really important. The building code actually only allows building permits to be open for 6 months, and then it's up to the building official to decide if it can be extended, unless there's a specific ordinance that's written with the county that extends it. So really, you're not asking for to shorten that timeline or to create some sort of process to it, but it's definitely there's definitely an issue with it that needs to be addressed.
You also mentioned that there's a problem that people take occupancy of their homes
Mhm.
and they don't ever seek a final permit.
Yep.
Or
So
a
they-
certificate of occupancy.
So, depending on how they are financing their house, if they're getting a construction loan, then they have to have a certificate of occupancy to close that out and to get traditional financing. But oftentimes up here, there's either people are paying cash as they go, or they get a traditional loan right from the get-go, and so they don't need that certificate of occupancy to close out their financing. And so what's happening is people are moving into the homes and not ever closing them out, not ever having final inspections done. And also even to the point of, we didn't really even talk about this, but even to the point of before a permit's even pulled, having work starting without having a permit.
Yeah.
And creating some sort of a penalty, where, all that turns into it, quite frankly, it turns into a whole lot of work for me to be able to get their permit and all that, and then they just pay a regular fee. To me, that doesn't seem, I feel like it's the county's best interest to create some sort of fee to penalize for people that are taking advantage of the county and the fees that go along with it.
So, do you want to talk about what they're doing in Garden City to?
So Garden City has I might butcher the dates just a little bit, but I think it's 18 months. So they establish the permit is for 18 months and then it expires, and no inspections can happen until they pay a renewal fee. And then once the renewal fee, or once it's expired past 30 days, then the fee goes up higher. And then once it's past 6 months, I think, then they actually have to reapply for a whole entire permit.
So it's actually after 30 days.
30, okay.
You have to reapply for a new permit.
So a permit's good for 18 months. And then you have 30 days to apply for renewal, which is
Mhm.
another 6 months.
Yep.
And how about the deposit thing?
And then they charge on a residential single family home, they charge a $2,000 refundable deposit. And the reasoning for not getting that deposit back are letting a permit expire, occupying a dwelling before, what are the other reasons? That's pretty much it, really. For occupying before a certificate of occupancy and a final inspection, and then for expired permits.
So is that $2,000 charged up front?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It is, when they get their permit.
Yep.
There's the cost for the permit, and then there's a $2,000 refundable deposit, I guess, so
Yep.
to speak. And if they miss that 30-day window on their renewal, they automatically forfeit that $2,000.
Right.
Now, when they apply for their, so they missed the 30 days, and then at that point in time, they gotta reply for a whole new building permit. Does that mean that they're charged for a whole new building permit?
They would be charged for the permit fee part of it. So like in Garden City, they don't pay for the fire
Right.
impact fee and for the 1% state fee. What else am I missing? Yeah, they don't have to pay the impact fees, or we don't really have any of those anyways, but yeah, it's just that permit fee, which is, on some of these houses, is pretty painful.
Well, I was just gonna say, just, you know, I mean, the value of that permit fee is based on the square footage.
Yep.
And so they basically would be paying at that all over again then,
Yep.
huh?
Yep, double.
Well, that's, you know, we've got a problem. I mean, there's obviously a list there where we've got to make some changes here. So, number one, they're not occupying before they should be, and number two, and that these are just going on and on and on, and there's no incentive to get it done.
So Tyler, how would you suggest cleaning up the ones that have occupied out there?
Camille and I are already kind of working towards it. When I say kind of, it's quite a process. So she's sending me ones that need to be closed out, and then I'm going out there and.
Do they
figuring out
usually
how
let you
they're
come
open.
in if you need to go in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a mean guy, so most people are pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
And usually it's me reminding them that they have something pending, and then they get on. And in fact, I closed out one today. I won't say names because everyone knows him, and he forgot. And then they got the challenges is, and something that I don't like doing is a temporary occupancy.
Yeah.
And now with a $2,000 deposit on the line, I can say, okay, you have a $2,000 deposit and you have 60 days to finish all of your items. If you don't finish, you're going to lose that deposit, and you still have to do your final inspection. So that will help with, you know, when the monetary side of it
Yeah,
comes in.
hold them hostage.
Yeah.
I got it. Yeah.
So, but yeah, we're working on it. We're getting into the slower season, and we'll start knocking out some more. I think we did 10 or 12 in the last couple of weeks to clean up. So.
Okay, great. So what do you need as far as us? Do we need to are we gonna have to do another ordinance?
We need an ordinance, yeah.
So,
So before I attempted a draft, maybe some direction on how long should a building permit last when it's issued?
would be really good, probably to mirror what Garden City's doing in one aspect, cause in that you only gotta keep track of
Yeah.
18 months versus, well, is he in the county versus this is, you know.
And I mean, I totally understand why that 5-year came into play here. I think the majority of the homes that seem to be built are built over a lot longer period of time, for a myriad of reasons. So I like the 18-month thing. I don't love the 6-month side of things, because I think that's really fast. But the 18 months is pretty fair with that. I also, you know, in an 18-month period, you should, during that process, even from the 4-way rough stage to a final inspection, you know, that shouldn't be longer than a year period usually, unless they're doing everything on their own. And so,
How do we accommodate someone who is building their own home and basically trying to cash flow their own home, and, you know, just as they get money, they, you know, continue to work on their home? I mean, are we putting an unfair burden on them to say, you know, in 18 months, and we're gonna start slapping more on you because, you know, and if they're trying not to finance their home and trying to build it on their own, have we got an avenue to help those that are wanting to do that?
I mean, I think if the renewal fee is fairly small, I think that renewal fee, Garden City's renewal is 6 months. It's not very long. Then maybe extending that renewal fee out for a period and making it so there's also the caveat of what someone thinks a final inspection is and what's required is not all the cosmetic. I mean, like just looking in a room like this, I need the life safety stuff completed. I need like the outlets and lights and that finished and smoke detectors, but I don't need carpet and I don't need the cabinets in. I need a kitchen sink in. So there's a lot of things that, and sometimes it's a matter of me just educating them and saying like, you don't have to have all that. You just need to have your life safety set up. And then because that part of cash rolling your house and at the end where everything gets really expensive, that's where people slow down a lot, is when they're trying to finish the tile in their shower.
Yeah.
So
I just don't wanna, I just don't wanna disenfranchise someone who's trying to build their house and trying to build it, as they can afford it. And, I just remember, of course, it's not that way anymore, but I remember, several years ago around the lake over there, a lot of those people come up every weekend and worked on their homes, and sometimes it would be 2 and 3 years before they even got to the point where they could even stay in it, and they were just trying to, it was a second home, and they were just trying to pay for it as they went along. And I don't want to, I don't know how we deal with that, but I don't want to make that so that it's just not affordable for somebody to even build a house because of the fact that they can't, they're not gonna use a bank, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, typically the slower you go, the less expensive it is, as you collect things and are able to get deals. But what was the proposed renewal cost, for to extend 6 months? Do we have
I think well, Garden Cities is $100. So.
And there's a limit how many times that can happen, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if I mean, as long as there's progress being made, I think we could put that in the language. As long as there's progress being made, like
they could just keep extending it until they're done.
You don't want to have I have a really good example in Garden City in Sweetwater. There was a builder there that did all of the houses, but then never even covered the roof. So I have, sheeting sitting on top of a roof for 2 winters.
Yeah.
That's the kind of house that we need to alleviate, because that's going to now be a structural issue, possibly.
And I get that. I just want to, if the renewal's $100 for another 6 months, I mean, that's certainly doable and helps people move along, but it doesn't make it unaffordable.
Kim?
You also have the flip side of that, where people are intentionally trying not to finish their house, so we won't put it on at full value. I've had that happen too, where I have to go back multiple times to find out if they're done or not. The CO has helped with that, but I know trying to clean a bunch up is helpful.
Yep.
Because we've got stuff that we don't have a CO for, and I've got it on it done, but I have had people trying intentionally not to finish a home so that I can't put them on at full value.
Could we do every renewal has to have at least one inspection, while you're renewing it? Because that way you can see if there's progress, and if they want to renew it again, and Tyler has to come out and check it out. I don't think that'd be too big of a burden on you to check a house once every 6 months.
No, I mean, most of those are drive-by.
Yeah. You think that would help, Kim?
Yeah, like you said, I think just having the building permit process helps, but, if you go too long, you got people that are milking that for all of its worth. So
Yeah.
you've got the ones that are trying to do it economically, and you got ones just trying not to have to pay taxes on it.
Yeah.
Till they don't wanna, depends on if they buy, sell, or pay taxes, what they want out of the county assessor.
Well, and are you gonna have a limit of how many times they can extend?
Well, we was just discussing that, if they're making progress, I don't know whether we want a limit or not, but that's something to discuss.
Yeah, it's tough because it's not one fix for everyone either.
Well, and the law needs to be built for people who are just, normal people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think probably no limit on extending as long as there's progress and at least a visit from you. That way, if it does get finished and they're trying to just extend it to miss a tax year, you know, you'll be able to catch it.
Okay, make a stab.
Okay, make sure I have my notes right. I think we're contemplating 18 months for a building permit. You renew it within 30 days. If you don't renew it, you gotta reapply.
Mm-hmm.
If you do renew it, it's a $100 renewal fee, but does require a visit. Unlimited renewals as long as there is movement at the building inspector's discretion. And then a renewal term, how long is that gonna be? So if I do renew it, do I get another 18 months? Do I get 6 months, 12?
I mean, I think a year is, I believe Garden City's is 6 months, but.
It is 6 months.
But it really just comes down to when they pay the fee, Camille throws on, there's a spot on there that you can throw the date on and then flag the permit, and it says this is when it expires. So it's really a matter of just keeping track of it.
What do you think?
I would say 6 months just to catch those that are trying to. I feel like if we do once a year, they could be like, I'm gonna finish my house next month, but I'm just gonna renew it now and.
And that
sit on it.
6 month renewal would give them an incentive to hurry it up and not
Yeah.
lollygag. Cause if they're having to shell out and have another inspection every 6 months.
And then the other issue is the fully refundable fee.
The deposit.
The fee, is that a deposit?
Yeah.
2,000? Okay. All right, sounds good. Do you want that on for a public hearing in December?
Yeah.
If you can get it by December.
I can get it by December.
Okay, we're giving you an extra week in December, just so you know, don't.
Are we the second week?
Yeah,
The 11th.
Okay.
that's also gonna be our budget hearing as well, so that'll be a busy day.
Great. Okay, that's all I needed.
Can I ask a question real quick? Are you guys mirroring this to like exactly what Garden City is doing, or no? Okay,
I don't know yet.
okay. Just cause they have a fee that if you, like, if it expires, but is like within the 30 days and you try and renew it, then that fee is $500. So that you don't have to buy a whole new, or redo the permit.
Completely.
So if you miss your 30 days, but then you want to renew,
And
you're
it's
not
within-
quite starting back at scratch?
Yeah, it's within.
I think I have that in there too, but it's in that ordinance.
Yeah, I see that here.
Yeah.
So it would be helpful if we could review those ordinances maybe a week before commission meeting,
No
maybe
pressure.
2 weeks before. Maybe next week.
It's cutting your time down now.
Before Thanksgiving, please.
Okay.
No.
Commissioners, I just had a thought back on the short-term rental thing. Would you guys be interested in like a tutorial or a demonstration on what your software does? Maybe
Which software?
the GovOS, the short-term rental software?
Yeah, if we had time.
I was gonna say maybe next
That-
December's not good.
No, it's not. Now, that renews in when?
I don't know, I'm thinking March, April, May-ish.
Okay, we need to find out when that is and make sure that if we're gonna make some changes, that we get adequate notice on that, so maybe in January.
I
maybe
have a
we
meeting
can-
with them, kinda like their outreach team next week. I'll follow up and find out when that is.
Okay, it would be good if we could maybe look at that and have a demonstration maybe in January.
Okay.
February.
Or would you know when that renewal is?
I kept looking through it and find out.
Okay, sounds good, thanks. Plan on that.
Thank you.
All right, I'll see you at 3:30.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You guys, did that one motion
Yeah.
to the public
Go
hearing?
up against it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we put the, building permit ordinance on for a public hearing on December 11th.
Okay, second.
We have a public hearing on the building.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you.
Great.
Okay, Dave, we've got some work for you to do too, but I don't remember what it was.
I remember we needed him for something.
Yeah. Oh, we need an ordinance about the canal. Let me give you something that Garden City has. We need to enact an ordinance. So there's two canals that run in the county, and right now, we need to have an ordinance about how close they can build and who determines what, and that the irrigation companies, both of the irrigation companies are notified when anybody's applying for any type of a subdivision or anything, so they know, number one, what their plans
So is the
are.
concern people are building too close to a canal and
Well,
disturbing it? or-
they had a washout over there, and it was because a developer had dug the foundation underneath the canal, and the canal bank just slid down the hill.
Okay.
That was in Garden City. But we've got a lot of development going on underneath the canals, and we gotta have some type of an ordinance to basically point back and say, okay, because of the steepness of the bank and everything, the canal will have to be put in a pipe, so to protect, so they don't.
Okay. So this is Garden City's, are you happy with this?
Yeah, and they're gonna, we need to what was it he's saying? They need to have a geotech approval or.
Yeah, any type of, I'll read through that, but, let me, so, yeah.
Thank you, thanks for
Thanks.
coming.
Do you want this for public hearing in December, or do you want it for discussion in December?
We can have a discussion in December. We've already got plenty going on, so, and this is gonna take just a little bit, so.
Okay.
So my suggestion would be to contact Brad Davis. He's the president of the Hodges Canal, which is the biggest majority of concern in the county. Swan Creek also is another canal, but it's more north of Garden City, so it would apply for both of them. But they met with us today, and Garden City enacted this a couple of years ago, and we need to do something similar.
Okay.
Just
All right, I'll give him a call.
okay.
Okay.
Alrighty, thank you.
Yeah. no problem. All right.
Drive
See you
safe.
guys. Hey, Lisa. Did you make it through yesterday?
Barely, yeah. We're okay.
Kim?
Kim Wilson, Rich County Assessor. I have two, these guys, this one got lost in the shuffle. She should have been primary. This is, Shannon Pudmeyer. She has that place in the cottages. We missed her. She had, we should have had her on as primary, and I dropped the ball, or she dropped the ball, or something. And then these two people, they went through our Board of Equalization, and we didn't grant them primary residency because they were getting it in Salt Lake County. But then, at the same time they got our letter saying they weren't getting the primary exemption in our county, they also got the letter from Salt Lake County saying they had changed them in their county for this year to secondary. So they're entitled to one, so we should probably grant it here. But it's an interesting scenario because the tax rate down in Salt Lake is 1.24%, and ours is less than half. And so the amount of taxes, ours was $8,500 without any exemption, and there it's quite
Okay,
large.
so they have taken residency then in Garden City.
Yes, and have changed it in Salt Lake. They're one I'm gonna watch very carefully, because I think they're gonna try to change it back real fast when they see the difference in
Okay.
taxes.
So do we need to approve those?
I need to approve those, yeah.
Okay, I would make a motion that we approve those primary exemptions.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So like I said, that's what they're gonna be paying in Salt Lake. Ours would
Let's
be
do it.
8,500 and then would be reduced 55% of that.
That's
So,
what I keep trying to tell people online.
yeah, they've gotta watch the tax rate because ours is really low. Did you wanna see that or did you see it? The difference in what the taxes would be. Anyways, thank you. Did you move that?
Yep.
Any other questions you have for me?
No.
I'm starting to hear back on some centrally assessed property, or I mean, not centrally assessed, state appeals, and so far I prevailed in all of them. There was a few we stipulated with, cause when I started actually doing the individual property, they weren't where we had them, so there was some mistakes, and so I did stipulate with some, so. Where they're still ongoing into 25, and there'll be 23 appeals, and then we're not sure I don't know what Annalise has got quite yet.
4 or 5 is all.
So that's good. Last year we had 16.
Oh,
So, anyway,
good.
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do you want copies of these from your account? You want to just get with me this afternoon?
Steak dinner.
Yeah.
I'll go-
Brian.
I'll go if you guys want. Do you want me to go represent? Yeah, I can do it.
Take your steak knife and go.
Hello. How's it going, guys?
Good, how are you guys?
You guys will state your names for the record.
So my name's Brian Wilmore.
And Thomas Wahlberg.
The sheriff's office.
Yep, with the sheriff's office. And we're here kind of following up with the proposition of bringing us up more competitive with our pay and increasing our staff. Specifically for school resource officers, but also the summertime help.
Okay.
What do you mean summertime help?
Having more deputies to help patrol for the influx
Oh,
of tourism.
Using the resource officers there, is that what you're saying?
Well, and in the summertime, we really could use 4 more, but I know that's asking a lot to begin with.
So I guess my question about that is with the blending of the natural resource officers, hasn't that brought some of the pressure and some relief on that, Brian?
No, it hasn't.
Not at all?
No.
That's actually gonna increase pressure, cause their coverage area is now gonna be for basically the Cache County area as well. So they'll be combined and actually out of the area less often, and it was proposed to the sheriff that, one of the things that they said was that we would possibly have to pick up the slack for state parks, actual parks, when calls come in. So it may actually increase our workload.
I've heard your boss say he's not gonna do that.
He says that, but ultimately if the call comes in, we're going, right? And that's what it's gonna come down to. We're gonna respond if we get called.
Because in the county, it doesn't matter what's going on, the sheriff's office has a responsibility to take care of the issues in the county.
Well, absolutely, but you had DNR responding to everything you had this summer.
Yeah, they were helping us, but it doesn't alleviate our workload as deputies, because they back us up and they'll help with critical incidences, but they don't investigate cases, they don't do traffic stops.
But they are backup.
Correct, but that's also not their job to back us up on county matters. Their job before that was to deal with the park issues and things related to that. They've been generous in backing us on those issues because there's a code among officers, you're never gonna leave another officer wanting for a back. And so they've responded to that, which also hurts their workload. And I think the county for too long has relied upon them as basically the supplement to the sheriff's office when it shouldn't be that way.
Can I get my name on the record as well?
Yeah.
Got something to add to that. Garrett Johnson with the sheriff's office. And also with the shifting of their duties, their response time, if they even could back in a situation, is going to be greatly increased. Because they're not gonna be stuck on the lake anymore. They're gonna be up in the mountains where their response time is gonna extend upwards to 40 minutes, maybe even an hour. That's if they're even in our county on our channel.
That was my question is, and I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, what is gonna be their responsibility?
They don't even
What are they
really-
doing in Cache County?
They don't even really know that now. So basically, my understanding is what's going to happen is they're now gonna become state rangers, basically, for lack of a better word. And their area is going to be basically Cache County and Rich County. Kind of like how Dakota Prey, our game warden is. His area basically covers more than just Rich County. And so they're gonna be having to respond to areas that way, is my understanding. However, I'm not sure exactly, and I don't even know if they're sure yet because there's still growing pains there and what they're creating and to how much they're actually going to have response with the lake itself and stuff like that. So it's kind of, we're kind of in well, it is a transitionary period with them. We can't answer and we don't know exactly what it's going to be until we know.
Just a tentative thing was they've stated one officer on a boat patrol, which will be out on the water for the entirety of the shift, other than breaks, and then the rest will be doing recreational stuff such as ATVs or snow machines or things like that during the winter. So, half a dozen of one, six of the other. The boat guy, if he wanted to come back, is gonna have to come in and then respond from the marina. The ATV guys will be out in the woods, and like Officer Wahlberg said, that entirety of their patrol area includes Cache. They may not even be on our channel to hear us call for a back.
So there are a few things we probably need to talk about. And I did read your letter you posted online, and you brought up some good points that we discussed earlier. There's some issues that we're gonna have to figure out. What are we gonna do for school resource officers? That's something that's just gonna have to be solved, regardless of what, who other entities are doing. If we're the one who is committed to the schools.
I know the school wants school resource officers themselves.
They wanna hire their own resource officers.
No, they would rather have school resource officers in there rather than guardians or private security, because they see the benefit of having the kids be able to build a rapport with officers, officers get to know the kids and be able to help them in the community when they're not in school. And a lot of times the school resource officer is the one who would get called for after hours stuff that didn't happen at the school because they would be more familiar with the student.
Okay.
And then from that same standpoint, having a guardian change their mindset from being a teacher or doing other work at the school to having to search out a threat if there was an active gunman in the school is a lot to ask of somebody who is expected to teach kids.
Yeah.
So it's just overall the benefits of having school resource officers outweighs, or in my opinion, is more beneficial than the guardians, both for the schools and the county.
And then from the county standpoint, like Officer Wahlberg said, and also Officer Wilmore, there is no other agency to take over to do it. It will just automatically default to the sheriff's office if that's the route that they want.
Yeah.
There's not a PD, there's not a state agency that can do it.
Can park rangers step up and help in the schools?
They would have to be posted in there, and that would be for their chain of command to decide if it went that way. But right now, no, because it's the sheriff's office's responsibility to make sure that the school's doing what they need to.
Basically, like we said earlier, if nobody else wants it, it just defaults to the sheriff. And there's no state agency that's going to take a local district and assume that liability. They're just not.
Cause that's what I was, in the winter, we're slower, but the park guys are way slower.
Except that's changing with their shifting, because now all of a sudden they're gonna have multiple more, snow machine patrols. They're gonna have, various duties, and they may even be pulling them off for extra help in other areas. Obviously, the snow's not gonna be 4 feet deep down in St. George, and so they'll be like, hey, we need extra ATV patrol. But once again, that's transition like Officer Wahlberg was talking about. We just don't know what they're gonna do. And for us to rely upon them when they don't even know what they're gonna do, we're setting ourselves up for failure there.
Okay, so if we had to hire two people, all of you are still the position that we just aren't competitive enough to find someone that you'd stick in school with your kid.
Yeah,
Correct.
because you don't want a new officer going into the school, especially because they're early 20s. They're going to be around. I've seen a lot of issues with officers and having inappropriate relationships with kids, and new ones are more susceptible to that. So you want somebody who has proven themselves, understands how to talk to kids, and interacts good with them.
I've worked at agencies that had school resource officer programs, and they're generally the older, more, I don't want to say gentlemanly type person, but they're basically like the big teddy bear type that can really get stuff done if they need to, but they're more of there as a friend for the kid, which is how the program's designed. When I was in high school back in the early 1990s, our school resource officer was an incredible guy. He showed up at all the sporting events. Kids just absolutely loved him. Unfortunately, he was killed in the line of duty, but even still to this day, I mean, it's 30 plus years ago, and Officer Welker's name is still revered in the school. So it's something that it's got to be the right fit. It can't just be a heartbeat that fills that position. It's got to be somebody that really is worthy of that position and has that attitude with kids. Just like how everybody can't be a teacher, it's a certain calling and a certain type, and that's what a resource officer is.
So you don't believe a rotating schedule would be good?
No, it's there's resource programs have been studied and done throughout the country for a long time, and the biggest thing that they get out of them, there's actually an actual certification you can get to be a resource officer. But the studies have shown that number one is you're not there as a law enforcement officer. You're basically there as more of a liaison and there to help the kids, but your job is also a law enforcement officer. But you need to build that rapport, and that rapport is incredibly important.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that as law enforcement officers, we view every nail like a hammer. We have to, that's how we treat those problems. The school resource officer has more discretion, more options. If he catches a kid, let's say smoking in the boys' room, we as officers would have to charge that, whereas a school resource officer has that discretion to where he's now going to work with that kid and try to solve the root problems. He's going to know the kid's family's better and things like that. And it's a rotating shift. It just doesn't work as well. You're basically at that point just another officer and another face, and that rapport doesn't get built.
The school resource officer as a position usually runs between 4 and 5 years minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So when you step into a position as a school resource officer, you're looking at that long of a commitment. So you're gonna be dealing with these kids from, we'll just use the high school, you're gonna be with them from the time they're a freshman to the time they graduate as seniors, just to build that rapport.
That's a whole new vision of what when this all first started. I thought it'd be a rotating thing. There isn't one of you that would wanna do that, is there? Wanna go to school every day?
I mean, it's
I
not.
wouldn't.
Not
I'd rather
me.
chase somebody down the
Yeah,
road.
it is more. That's why I said it's got to be the right kind of
Right,
person.
I understand that, but realistically, who are we gonna get to do that?
There are a lot of people, I think, that are getting towards the end of their career that just want a nice, not easy post, but one that's a little less stressful, to where they don't have to go out and patrol. They're not worried about chasing down bad guys. They want kind of right out there last few years doing something that's not as stressful as patrol.
And that's what I've seen is most resource officers are generally the guys that are on the back half of their career. With that comes temperance though too, and so that's why they also work out better in that. You get a fresh officer that's brand new out of the academy, and he's wanting to go out there and tackle everything and fight everything.
Absolutely.
And that's not who you want in with the kids. You want a guy that realizes that just because somebody did wrong doesn't make them a bad person. And unfortunately, the academy does train you to where you're right out of the academy. That's kind of how you view the world. And as time goes on, you build more temperance and patience.
But you bring up a good point, the back half of their career, also means they probably need to get paid more money.
Correct. Yeah, they're gonna be higher on the step scale and all that too.
Not to belabor a dead horse, but I spoke with a shift sergeant in Spanish Fork when I was down there for a wedding, and this was within a 10-minute interaction, and he told me that he could get me $42 an hour starting, with a sign-on bonus of $10,000, just because of my years. And that's what's going across the state right now. Everybody's shorthanded, everybody's got these problems, and they're throwing money at it. And unless you have a very strong tie to this community, the only reason that you're gonna come here is if somebody's throwing money at you. That's just unfortunately the way it is.
And I think a lot of, you could get people to move up here wanting the quieter, small town feel rather than big city stuff, so.
I actually spoke with somebody that's currently serving as a school resource officer. I don't wanna say what agency in case he's watching right now, but he said that he would come here in a heartbeat if he was at least making what he was making where he's at. And it was in the low 40 range where he's currently at. But he said he'd move here in a heartbeat for that reason, as I mentioned, basically the quieter life. And there are some benefits to being at a smaller school and stuff you don't have to deal with. So that's why we all live here, because we love it.
And how many years has he been working?
I think he's at 14.
That's what I'm at, and that's, like I said, that shift sergeant in Spanish Fork is like, I can get you hired in 2 weeks.
See, this has a lot of traction to me, these things. Last meeting when Officer Wilmore said that he could get $10 more an hour working at the state prison, to me, that ain't worth $10 an hour to me, to go in there. I'd
No.
rather drive a brand new truck up and down the road and chase bad guys.
No, and it's the truth, but it's like I told that sergeant, I'm like, my wife is making triple what I am, and she doesn't wanna leave here. And so I can afford to stay here, but as a former member of the department liked to joke, he called me a hobby cop because I had a sugar mama that took care of me. And that's, in reality, what it goes down. If my wife didn't have the job she did, there's no way I could live where I live, and there's no way I could support my family on what I make. I mean, that's just the truth.
Yeah. Well, this is budget season. We'll take all this into consideration and work on this for sure.
So, just to lay it out for you, these are the facts, guys. So we take everybody in the department, we give them a $10 an hour raise. And then we hire 2 new deputies. The 2 new deputies, equipped with your $10 an hour raise, with all your benefits and everything, is $600,000. That is half of our property taxes. So in order to raise your $600,000, we will raise property taxes 50%. So if you wanna hang on for that little fight.
It's not about.
I get
that-
what you're saying, but I'm
and-
telling
and
you
there's-
what you're asking for.
But there's money available out there that could come from the school.
It's a grant. You don't give raises,
But if
you
you
don't
have-
hire people on grants. End of story.
If you have a contract with the school where there's resource officers are gonna be in the school 70% of the year.
They will not commit to anything yet. Because they're, you know what they're gonna do? They're gonna turn around and raise your taxes too. So the school's gonna raise your taxes to pay for the resource officer. So we will, and they will.
So what's your solution then?
I don't have a solution,
Because
Tom.
we,
That's the
because we are
problem.
facing,
I get it. I
we are
get it.
facing a problem coming up,
I
and
get
we're
it.
growing at
We
an
are.
unprecedented
I
rate.
get it, but I'm just asking you, are you willing to pay 50% more in your property tax?
Well,
I think if people
it
understood
would
that it was
depend.
going to law enforcement or to public safety and their kids.
I don't think you're gonna get that support. You know, I will tell you, appreciate you putting your little post on, Garden City Neighbors and Rich County Time, or Rich County News and Events, because it's spurred a lot of conversations. It's been really good. And, it's quite interesting about the fact of, yes, you guys are really good guys, but don't be raising my property taxes because they're unhappy with what they're being paid. I'll just
I
condense it
didn't
into
say that in my letter, which wasn't a little letter.
I know.
I put in there that specifically it could raise your property taxes. I'm not trying to beat around the bush about that
No,
fact.
and that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, that's what spurred the conversations. It's don't be praising my property taxes to pay these guys more money.
Well, one thing that people need to realize too as well is I would say probably the vast majority of the homes that are gonna be, being built in Garden City are people from the, second homes.
Yeah.
People from the Wasatch Front, and they are expecting a certain, what they call in the medical field, a standard of care. They go down, they come from Salt Lake, they expect they're gonna call the police down there, they're gonna have an officer at their home within minutes. They come up here and they expect that same level of service. However, they're gonna have to be willing to pay for that level of service if that's what they're expecting. And I actually think most people probably recognize that. The rate up here is quite low. When you ran for re-election, you stated that you hadn't raised taxes in over 30 years.
Because of the
So-
new growth, but that's ended.
Yeah, exactly.
The growth is not there now.
But the homes are there. For example, on Sweetwater Hillside alone, there's 830 homes currently built or under construction. My wife just said she got another application for another 24 additional homes that are gonna be going in over the winter and next spring. So that amount of homes is more than entire South County put together just on one hillside. And those are the vast majority second homes. So those homes we have to respond to. The four of us cannot handle the growth in the summer that we're dealing with. We on any given weekend, we're looking at around 40,000 people in Garden City. That's the population of Logan. The four guys are expected to deal with, plus have family lives, plus sleep, plus eat, and basically exist. So it is going to require an increase in taxes. There's no doubt about it, or an adjustment to the rate or whatever it takes. But
Same thing.
yeah,
Well,
exactly. But we can't just keep kicking the can down the road when it's already here. The growth is here, and I would hope that it doesn't be in a couple years. They're now saying, well, now let's do it after one of us is either seriously injured or killed, or there are just nobody to take the positions. Because if it gets to the point where you can't afford to live or can't afford to have officers, who's going to fill that role? So that's the actual facts would be looking at. You won't get somebody to come up here that'll work for $20 an hour when you can go somewhere else making twice that amount. They just won't come here, and then we won't have those officers. And then what happens?
Well, and then what happens when the legislature finally goes, oh, we don't have any teeth in this, we're gonna just force it. Right now, they're like, oh, cause they're playing with the new programs. They've offered grant funding to both the schools and to the departments. What's the time limit on that?
1 year.
Well,
That's
the
it.
thing of it is how much of it is being used? Are they gonna look at it and go, oh, this was used to the maximum, we need to refund that? Or are they just gonna go, the departments are kicking it down the can, or kicking the can down the road, they're not taking care of it, we're gonna force them to do it.
Well, all I'm saying is you can't bank your salaries and increases on grants. It just, you don't do that.
Nobody's saying that, Bill.
Well, but you're
I
saying.
understand what you're saying, but also, maybe it's because I'm married to an accountant, but I understand that there's a little bit of juggling that can be done here. When you have certain funds that you can't use, obviously, for wages and benefits, but you can use it for equipment, well, you can offset that by buying your equipment with that and paying wages and benefits out of the other. So, I mean, I'm not saying that it's gonna be an easy solution, but it's a solution that's gonna be forced down our throats,
Well,
whether we want it or not.
We understand that, but paying for it's another thing. I would love to be able to say, you know what, you guys are great. Let's give you another $10 an hour. Let's make this so it's an appealing job and everything else. And that's all fine and dandy, but what I want and what the books say is another story. And I'm just saying, anytime you hire people and you give raises, that's gotta be an ongoing stream of funding. Ongoing stream of funding. And, we try to cut as many corners as we can to make sure that, it's not we don't buy the latest and the greatest and all that kind of stuff, but we've tried to keep you guys up to date with everything you got between your tasers and your computers and everything else to give you the very best equipment you got. And that's, that's difficult as well, but grant money can obviously be used for that because it's a one-time purchase, and that's great. And I talked to the superintendent, and he goes, we've got basically $150,000, but it's a one-time grant. So, okay, well, we can throw that at these guys. That wouldn't even fund one officer. But when that's gone, the officer's wages is gonna continue to go on, and his benefits are gonna continue to go on, and then we've gotta figure out, okay, where do we make that up? And we've been very fortunate in Ridge County because new growth has brought more money every year in without having to raise the taxes. But it is what it is. Other counties are struggling exactly the same way we are.
I appreciate what you're saying, because like you said, they're struggling. It is a struggle
it is.
Nationwide.
It is. And there's 3 or 4 of the commissioners that said that the school districts have decided that they want to go with a guardian hybrid type thing with a resource officer on particular events and different things like that. And they're working with the school districts on that. I don't even know what that looks like. Maybe I'll get a little better idea in this next week. We meet with some of the other commissioners, but the commissioners across the state are all with the same challenge. And the sheriff's department, law enforcement. But when it comes right down to it, you guys have got to do the work, and we got to figure out how to pay you to do the work or do the funding or whatever it is. So I'm just laying it out. It's between 49 and 50% increase to fund this new position without additional funds to help us. That's where it is.
But additional funds are out there and available, aren't they? If you contracted with the school, it doesn't have to be grant money, but sign a 5 or 10-year contract, they're gonna pay this certain amount of money. I know Mayor Mike from Garden City said that they would offer another $50,000 if we hired another deputy.
Yeah, as long as you spent your time in Garden City.
Yeah.
Which
And
by
that could be-
default is kind of what happens anyways. And actually,
Right.
one of the things that unfortunately is just a fact of life is the South County kind of seems to get neglected come summertime, just because
we're better over here. We're nice.
Well, I'll be honest with you, when Mayor Lenhart told me that he was gonna do that when he first did it, when he was first contemplating that, I actually giggled and I said, Mike, we already spend 90% of our time over here anyway. And he said, well, we need the personnel, and that's why he was willing to do it. I understand, Bill, I don't want my taxes to be raised any more than anyone else, but when my taxes go up, I see something out of it, it's a little easier to swallow. And bodies on the street is something that's visible.
Are we at risk of losing you guys because you're gonna go somewhere else?
Me, honestly, yes, I can't afford to stay at this job making what I am and take care of my family the way that I feel I need to, especially living up here, because it's more expensive. The only reason I'm currently in Garden City is because my brother-in-law, he rents to me and he gives me an incredible deal on it. So otherwise, my rent would go up probably $1,000.
I'm still a hobby cop and my wife still doesn't wanna go anywhere. But I will be honest with you, I kinda wished I'd have brought it. You're talking about funding, I wished I could show you my sheet of my benefits. I'm currently sitting at 200 hours of comp time. I'm sitting at over 1,000 hours of sick time. I am 200 hours of my vacation. My holiday pay is almost 700 hours. And that's generous, it's great, it's wonderful, but I don't even have time to use it.
Yeah, because of the shift schedule.
Because if I leave, as Officer Wilmore pointed out in his letter, if I leave everybody else in the lurch. And the sheriff's been great to give it to us when we need to take it, but I'll be honest with you, it's very rare that I take a 2-week vacation in a year, just because I know the hardship of what it's gonna stick the other guys to cover. And so that just continues to build and build and build. And then when I finally get around to retirement, I get to take a year off that the county has to pay for, because all that has to be burnt and not paid out in one lump sum. I'm almost wondering how much money would the county be saving if we had the personnel so that we were using this time instead of compiling it. Now, obviously, all of the stuff I got, if I was to cash it in, would cover one person's salary at my salary for 9 months out of the year. But still, that's all been compiled with no way to burn it.
Yeah, we have to figure all our liabilities into the year on our audit, so we know exactly what that is. If you guys all quit today, or we all paid you out today.
It's not gonna be, I mean, if I was to just say right now, I could take the next 6 months off without having to worry about anything, and that's not even touching the sick time. So,
And even though I said, like, I can't afford to stay at this job and keep living in Garden City, that doesn't mean I want to quit. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy helping the people that I get to help, and that's why I'm here trying to fight for what I think is needed in order to stay, instead of just cutting and running and leaving the community shorthanded again. Because I know that it leaves a hole and it's gonna be hard to fill that.
Well, you've been a benefit to the community, you really have. Feedback's been good, and we wanna figure something out. And I've gotta say, you're lucky, all three of us wanna help you. And
I understand that.
Bill
I
and
think you
Sim
guys
are
do.
creative, and we can figure something out, and it may not be the perfect solution. There are some moving pieces, you know, the constitutional amendment that we just voted on, allowing the schools to get a little bit more money, that may help towards a contract. And we are gonna go meet with all the commissioners throughout the state this next week, and I guarantee we're all gonna be brainstorming of what can happen going into the legislative session. And it's budget season, so there will be answers by December, you know, of what's going on, at least in the short term.
Well, between now and the next year budget meeting, there's a month and a half. And I know stuff like this gets lost in the shuffle, and I don't want that to happen with this, cause out of sight, out of mind.
Oh, it's not gonna get lost in the shuffle, I can tell you that right now.
Well, I appreciate that.
We've gotta figure out what we're gonna do, and it's, in fact, right now, it's on the burner and the heat's right up.
Well,
Because the budgets have all gotta be approved by the second week in December, and we'll have a decision by then as to just what are we gonna do, whether we're gonna start the process, for the next year. So you start increasing taxes, that takes 3 months. Takes 3 months to do all the notification and all the figuring and all that kind of stuff before you can even put it in a budget. So, you know, this is something we gotta deal with, and we've also gotta figure out what we're gonna do with the resource officer and how we're gonna cover that. Whether until we get 2 new deputies, or whether we work with the school and the guardian thing, or what the best solution is that. So this is, like, we're just going into budget season, and this is when we have to make some decisions for this next coming year. So it's on the burner, Brian, it's not going away.
on that note, when we're required to have bodies in the schools, we can do so with a rotating shift, but that's a Band-Aid. That's not something that becomes
Very
a
true.
long-term solution.
Very true, I agree.
Not even past, I'd say even the rest of this school year,
Well,
if we could avoid it.
Speaking for myself on that one, that's a failing proposition right from the beginning as far as how the programs are supposed to work. And so, like you say, it's a Band-Aid, I mean, temporary, it would have to be very temporary.
But realistically, I mean, I see your point with the older guy doing it, but realistically, how is Rich County gonna find him?
I can't see, Tom, I can't see you, the big fluffy teddy bear. Exactly,
I'm sorry,
I
but
mean,
I
I
just
just-
can't quite do that.
Exactly, that's the thing, I'm not the type for that.
Talking amongst ourselves, I'll be honest with you, there's not any of the four of us that are looking to volunteer to go into the school. In
No, that's what
reality.
I said earlier. I
Yeah.
says there isn't one person here that would wanna go to school every day and sit there.
But
Put
those
it this
people
way, though.
are out there, and especially when they're looking at the end of their career. Even one of them I talked with before, this guy, I worked with him at South Salt Lake, and he was a bodybuilder. He looked like Mr. Clean, like 6'2", just a massive guy shaped like a triangle. And he'd been a school resource officer for 9 years, and he absolutely loved it. And the kids loved him. It was, if you saw him on the street as a cop when he was in his cop uniform, like working an overtime shift, you'd think he was the guy that was gonna basically fold you into a pretzel and throw you in the back of his cop car. But then dealing with the kids, he was just absolutely amazing, and they all loved him. He was like the Pied Piper when he walked around. They're just all around him. And so those people are out there. It's just,
Sheriff, you've been doing this 30-something years. You wanna go to school every day?
And I don't think rotating people out of there is gonna work. I really don't.
As rotation, you mean?
Rotating through the school.
I agree.
is there anything from our end of it we can do to help you guys out? Information, anything like that, research you want us to do?
No, I don't think at this point, we gotta solve the problem. One of the big problems is obviously financial, so no matter what we do. So,
I think we're facing the same growing pains that like Moab faced, 10, 15 years ago before they got discovered. And I think we're becoming basically another Moab type place with a lot less infrastructure in place for it, so. But the numbers, like I said, on Sweetwater Hillside alone, it's just, it used to be when I was the first one to build on our side of the neighborhood over there 15 years ago. We were the only house over there. Now we're in a full-on neighborhood, and there was, in the winter, you could point at the hillside and see the people that were year-round, and there was only 4 or 5 lights on. Now it looks like a city up there every single night, so the people are coming, and we're just gonna have to figure out a way to provide the services that they're gonna expect, and unfortunately, they're just gonna have to pay for it.
Oh, and obviously, we do slow down from summertime to wintertime, but we don't go dead. In fact, wintertime stuff has picked up. Still getting called out at least once a week.
Yes, the winter time, like I was saying, on the weekends, now people are able to rent houses in the off season for like $250 a night, which in the summer was gonna cost them, $1,000 a night. And so we get a lot of people up here renting stuff. Last weekend I was on, for whatever reason, I thought it was a holiday with how many people were coming in, and everybody decided that they wanted to go fast and meet me. So I was stopping a lot of people, and almost every single one of them I stopped was renting houses. And so it's even in the winter time now, the word's out.
They're having business conventions or, work group meetings up here at some of the short-term rentals.
Yeah, business retreats and all kinds of stuff like that.
Well, that's what the Visitor Bureau's pushing for, so.
That's kind of, not to turn this into a wine fest, but, we're kind of stuck in that rock and hard place because the tourism is pushing to get more people here, and we don't get to relax anymore because it's just not there.
My understanding on the transient room tax, doesn't a large portion of that go to advertising?
It has to.
Yeah,
See, so it has to go to advertising, so it kind of compounds the
Yeah.
problem, especially for small communities like ours. It exacerbates the problems that we face.
Well, and we can't turn it off. You either take the money and spend that portion on advertising and you're able to use the other part,
Yeah,
or you don't take any money. So that advertising is gonna continue
yeah.
and forever.
Okay, well, we hear you.
Yeah.
We're just gonna try and look at all the avenues we got and see what
Well,
we can figure out.
we really are, I'm happy to help because it's not my intent to come and make a bunch of demands and say, figure it out. I want to work together to find the best solution for everybody. Because I live in the community, if property taxes go up, my rent probably goes up. So,
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you guys and your hard work and what you do, and we do realize that you're worth more than you get paid, for sure. But we gotta figure it out. We need to meet with, I think, the superintendent would like to visit, and
Yeah.
maybe we can come up with something.
Well, thank you for your time.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in.
Congratulations on your reelection.
Oh, thank you. It's good to see you.
Good to see
Thanks,
you.
Sam.
Good to see you in here, not out on the street.
Yeah, thank you.
See you, Jared. Okay, Jones and DeMille contract renewal.
Okay, I would make a motion that we renew Jones and DeMille's, contract for, I don't think they specified, for another year of our engineer of record for, to do the engineering work for the county.
I'll second that.
Moving second, that we renew that contract. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, you guys seen the expenditures?
Sam's looking through
I was
them
just
right now.
looking through them.
Got stuck with you.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we approve the expenditures for October.
Second.
Moving second, the expenditures be approved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
You entertain a motion to adjourn?
I would.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moving second, we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nobody opposes that.